Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the studio. It's a great pleasure to be with you today for the latest in our e-commerce world review, where in this series we're taking a look behind the scenes at our recent research reports. And so it's a great pleasure to have in the studio today Kamran Hedri, who is the founder and group CEO of PXP Financial, who are one of our research partners on this. But let's leave the LinkedIn photos and go to real life. Kamran, welcome to the studio. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. Why don't we start off with some intros? Could you tell us a bit about you and PXP Financial, and then we'll roll into the rest of the webinar. Welcome.
Thank you for your kind introduction, Ian. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me give you a short overview of myself. Kamran Hedri, CEO of the PXP Financial. I've been in the industry for more than 30 years now, and I've been busy with different topics across the ecosystem, like gateways, acquiring, and issuing also to some extent, with various verticals, retail, hospitality, and currently I'm the CEO of the PXP and founder of the PXP. We've been working in, as I explained, in various verticals, and one of the biggest verticals that we have is the retail, and this is a very important part for our company. We are working on multiple jurisdictions in UK, Europe, US, Latin America, and South Africa. Our ambition is to expand across APACs and various regions of Africa, and also working heavily on our strategy for coming months and years on standalone and soft POS. That's a big part of our thinking and where we think it's going. So there is also investment in that area, and we got presence in multiple countries, in India, in Sofia, in Vienna, Austria, UK, and US, and very much looking forward to this webinar. Thanks for the opportunity to participate in this.
Not at all. Well, thanks for supporting us. And we've always said at Internet Retailing that it's the payment that makes the difference between a marketing site and an e-commerce site. So it's very much the moment of truth. So before we dive in, I should maybe just explain a little bit about the 360 reports. So these are a new innovation for 2024, where we've for a long time run direct consumer research, and we survey around 40,000 consumers, mainly in Europe, but with a few, should we say, forays into the US and the ANZAC market. And we do it in about 17 different languages year round. So we have the consumer view. We also research the top performing retailers via the UK Top 500, which has been going for 10 years. And traditionally, this report, when we look at the market, is about the econometric behavior and characteristics of the market. So for this year, we thought, why make somebody look at 3 reports when we can bring them all together to provide that 360-degree view of the consumer, the market, and the key players. So that's very much what we've done. So if you're on this webinar, it's either because you've downloaded the report and thought, oh, I'd love to hear some more, in which case, welcome, or you're joining us on the webinar first, and now you're thinking, I wish I had that report. Fear not, you will get a copy of it by email once this transmission has finished. So let's jump straight off into a quick look at the market. And I think if you had to say, in the UK, what has affected the market for the last couple of years coming out of COVID, the big story has been inflation. And we're talking about inflation levels that a whole generation of leaders has never had to deal with. So if you're old enough like me to remember running businesses in the 20th century. We went through the Black Monday. We saw interest rates at 17%, 15%. And but for the last 20 years, it's as if interest rates belong at zero, and the only thing that happens is magic growth. So this has been a real shock to the consumer, of course, especially the Gen Zs that have been driving digital. But it's been a massive shock as well to leaders in businesses who for the first time are seeing costs explode left, right, and centre. So if you combine the post-pandemic with post-Brexit, with post-trust, trustonomics, it has been an incredibly painful time for the British consumer. And although we can see, thank goodness, the headline rates of inflation are dropping, retailers are still having to contend with consumers facing a doubling of their mortgage repayments, a constraint of spending as a leisure activity, as well as their costs increasing. So this is why, if you're not a retailer, but you invite a retailer around for Sunday lunch or for drinks on a Friday, this is why they're not the bubbly, happy people they were 2 years ago, because this period of unstopped growth really has hit a brick wall. Cameron, am I being too pessimistic? Do you look from your global perspective and think, no, the UK is a happy place full of joy and happy consumers? Or are you seeing that compared to other regions, the UK consumer is under a bit more stress than before?
I unfortunately need to concur to your view, right? And this is a picture that we can see across multiple markets. We see different variation of this to some extent, right? In Europe, you have got the different countries that are hit more heavily than the others, and we see also that the drop in the other areas. But you're completely right, and everybody is feeling it in the pocket when they go out, and also to that extent where you see the spend across, you see that yes, it is increasing, but the people are under a lot of stress, and I don't know if that's a continuation, and I think there is a drop, but in overall thinking, this is a situation that need to be dealt with, and there has got some learnings and some consequences on the overall structure of spending.
Yes,
over the next few years, I would say. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Cameron. I mean, but there's no such thing as totally good news or totally bad news. So one of the interesting things in the UK is that although the percentage of internet users hasn't budged, the UK is a mature market where nearly everybody now has very good internet access. We're also not seeing much increase in the numbers who shop online because, spoiler alert, anyone who wants to shop online is more or less doing it already. What has been interesting, though, is the growth in e-commerce as a share of overall revenue. So in the bottom line chart, we can see that the dotted black line is the global increase. And of course, we'd see this with developing markets embracing e-commerce. But if you compare the blue dotted line, which is the European growth, and the UK, we can see that although there is some growth in channel switch, in digital in the UK, we are somewhat behind Europe's growth. Now, some of this will come because in Europe, we're seeing more and more digital services being made available. So not just product purchases. We're also seeing in the UK, which had been a leader in e-commerce penetration as a percentage of total sales, that we would see obviously less option for growth. But I think it is a factor that shows if you're in digital retail or e-commerce, there's a lot to be played for in terms of being on that rising market. The challenge is that the level of dynamism is somewhat muted. And so if you are fortunate enough to be working across border, maybe across Europe, then you'll be noticing there's in other markets, particularly Germany, particularly the Nordics, there's a real spring in the step in terms of an appetite for digital services, digital experiences, and digital commerce, supported by growth in marketplace and availability, as we'll see in a minute, but also by ever-increasing logistical capability, which makes more things gettable. So the UK is still growing in that area, but that growth is a little bit more muted than maybe the more ebullient situations we're seeing across Europe. So if we now turn to the lovely consumer, it's time to look inside her mind and see what the intentions are. And in the last survey, we surveyed about 1,000 UK consumers to ask them what was important to them in terms of making their decisions. And what's interesting here is that we can see a split between credible sites who are, once they have a customer, the customer is very happy to take their own, the recommendations of that retailer. And so in the first bar and the second bar, then we're seeing trusted sites are very much a strong or mild influence on additional purchases, with only about 20% saying that they don't look at those recommendations at all. The next bit then is around social media or independent stylists. And what we can see here is that although the levels of influence aren't that dissimilar, there's a much stronger negative response with customers saying, oh, I don't pay any attention to those whatsoever. Now, I think we have to be quite careful with this number. If you look behind the data and slice this based on generation, then what we're seeing is that there is an older demographic, typically the Gen X, the boomers, who are very adamant about saying, no, I am my own person, no one influences me. And then we have the younger generations, especially around the Gen Zs, even more so than the millennials, who are saying, just bring it on, this is where I do my shopping and get my inspiration. So you can see those splits by country, by sector, and by generation in our Consumer X app. And if you want access to that, just head over to consumerx.net, click apply, and we're in open beta. So you're welcome to get an account and slice and dice the data to your heart's content. But I think what we're really seeing is that there's an expressed willingness to listen to a trusted retailer, and young people are getting a lot of inspiration from social and from experts who aren't aligned with the brands. Now, another thing that we've been looking at carefully is sustainability and what the perceived and expressed influences are for the consumer. And I'm just going to point at the second row here, which is the use of environmentally friendly packaging. So we ask this within a series of questions about delivery, where what we can see here is that the first thing the consumer says is, I want next day delivery, I want it to be cheap. So it's service first, give me the best service. But they then say, well, while you're giving me the best service, I demand you use environmentally friendly packaging, and I'd like it to be carbon neutral. And as we drill into this, what the consumer is telling us time and again is that they see any wastefulness in the delivery chain as weakness and ineptitude on our part. So if it comes in excessive packaging or the wrong packaging, they look at us and think that we're not in control of our own activity. A human in a store would never put a tiny item in an enormous box or in too fragile a box, etc. So I think what this shows is that the consumer expects us to tighten our belts, to get better at packaging and to cover off all of the carbon neutrality they desire, but they're not willing to pay for it. So this is very much the realm of make the savings, make the running. And we have some early indications from retailers who are saying that they don't any longer get an uplift from saying and doing sustainable packaging, but they do get a negative response if they don't. And so this is a case of it's now table stakes to do well, and there's a negative impact if you don't, but you no longer get an uplift by being the first or the best anymore. And if we look then at where the actual purchases are being made, we ask the question of the consumers, which are the categories in which you've consciously made a decision based upon sustainability? And the two standout leads are grocery and clothing. Now, these are also the sectors in which the retailers and manufacturers have done the most. I mean, if you, let's say, for example, you landed from Mars today and you learned English in a millisecond and walked into a supermarket, once someone had taken you around and explained the aisles and category management, any product you pick up is dripping with information legally required in terms of the energy, fat, salt, sugar, sustainability, recycling, ethical origins, etc. I mean, these are walking data totems. They're like the Rubicon, trying to understand everything that's there, the Rosetta Stone of data. And so grocers and clothing retailers, helped in some cases by regulation, have done really well. Beauty and cosmetics, we see there's a total split here. There's the I really don't care, and there's the I really do care market. No one seems to be on the fence about this. Homeware, the big driver seems to be about whether there are noxious chemicals, is it safe for the baby, can it be recycled, etc. That's the big one. And then it's an interesting one to see that travel and accommodation is increasingly coming into play. Consumer electronics are lower, but I think this reflects a longer purchasing cycle, but recognizing as well that there's a lot of EU regulation that covers that. So sustainability very much now becoming mainstream, and something that we're tracking, of course, in our Sustainability X and our annual sustainability report. And I thought, just to round off on the topic, it was quite interesting to compare the top of the tree retailers with the top 500. So remember, to be in the top 500, you are amongst the best of the best in the UK. But the top 100 stands out as a whole other level of capability. And so it's just worth looking at those two tranches. And what we can see is in every area, the top 100 are around twice as committed to sustainability as the other 400. So we see that sort of nearly 3 times the number offer repair schemes, double the number offer recycling, 3 times the number offer rental, and 3 times the number are very upfront with repair and troubleshooting information on the site about the products. So I think what we're seeing is that where the very best lead, the best will follow. And so I think this is an indication of where the market is going, and shouldn't be seen as an end point, but rather a step on the journey. So let's just change gear slightly and have a look at what people are using to shop. Some interesting things here, because I think it's tempting to be a focus group of one. where I can genuinely say I've never shopped on a smart TV or smart speaker in my home, other than proving it could work. And the kids did try and order lots of things off Amazon some years ago. But this is quite an interesting breakdown. Cameron, did you have any thoughts about this change in how the consumer is accessing digital shopping and services?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting picture. I mean, it goes without saying, ensuring a seamless experience across all the devices is vital and can significantly enhance conversion rate. So that's the key point for us when we do the shopping. And mobile optimization is very crucial. And a lot of UK consumers browse on their phones, right, and complete purchases on their devices, and they browse, and then they go, and the completion of the purchase also happens on that mobile device. And actually, the retailers should actually, the picture tells us they should prioritize mobile's first design, quick loading times, intuitive navigation, and streamlined checkout processes, so that whole process is seamless and capture on-the-go shoppers. But you should not neglect also the desktop, right? There is this interesting fact, right, that the conversion rate still, although the high volume of mobile traffic, the desktop conversion rate is still higher. So desktop conversion rate is around 3.89%, whereas the mobile conversion is lower at approximately 2.2%. Yeah, and this actually tells us the revenue conversion and contribution for mobile devices is almost half, but the total revenue of the retail sites on the desktop devices, despite fewer visits, generally nearly twice the revenue. So indicates a conversion rate efficiency. So there is still work to be done on that sector, right, and on the optimization of those things. But it's interesting, and I'm a good supporter of all the other channels like smart TV and to your point, I've done it also, but it's not the way that I go, right? And I have hopes for the smart speakers and Amazons and all those ones. I think that's also an interesting aspect. There are thoughts around
I think
that.
when a sort of conversational AI kicks in and gets safer, we'll see both of these pick up. But I think what's interesting to note here is that if you look at smart TV and smart speaker, then for a millennial who might remember the old world, or a Gen X who definitely does remember the old world, it's one thing to say, oh, they haven't yet adopted. Because I think what's interesting about the desktop is that the level of rejection, the number of people who say never, is close to the number of people who don't use smart TVs or smart speakers. Whereas at one point, of course, desktop was your only choice. So this has had a major fall. And I think one of the questions we have outstanding is whether the reason you go to a desktop is where either the nature of the purchase hasn't been optimized for smartphone, or whether it's a demographic. And so again, if you look on Consumer X and slice this information by age, then you see that people hanging on to desktop tend to be the older age cohorts. However, by category as well, we see that some categories are either not suitable for the simpler, smaller mobile because of the configuration options maybe, or because the retailers haven't optimized fully. So this is an area we're watching, and I think you do have to ask a question about if you're going to send a consumer to your desktop site, is that because it's the right thing or the easy thing, and take it from there. So lots of questions there, but I think the unambiguous point is now that the smartphone is the central absolute device that everyone's using. And we know it ourselves. We know it as we see it on the street. So let's carry on, because we also asked a bit about when people are shopping, what the important things were to them. So we started off with being able to get product. And of course, product availability is fundamental, because if the product's not available, you can't buy it. So it's a bit obvious, but shows the importance there. We'll talk about marketplaces in a second. I was interested to see how number 2 is the retailer's reliability. And I think if we look at that, we see that 62% of people say this is very important. For me, Cameron, I think what this says is the difference between a purchaser and a customer. So a purchaser is someone who comes and buys once. A customer has prior experience with you. And if they find you reliable, you carry that goodwill. But if they find you unreliable, they don't forget, because it's important. So that was really interesting. But again, if you compare this with just before COVID, most of these things were less important. And I think there used to be a level where the consumers say, oh yeah, this digital stuff is a bit new, we'll give them a break. Whereas now it's just, we expect it. But interesting as well, we've seen some growth in different online payment cards. So the UK is very highly penetrated with debit or credit cards. So that helped the e-commerce boom. But what else was your takeaway from the payment aspects as an expert here?
I think, to your point, if you see that my preferred payment option is there, right? So if you think about it, it's offering the right mix of the payment options online is clearly a topic, right? But at the same time, remain relevant and not overloading the checkout with all the stuff that are not relevant for the customer. So having the right mix and understanding the demographic of your customer, right? You mentioned Gen Z versus Gen X, right? The different behaviors that they do, right? And then they have different payment options, preferences. I'm not speaking only specifically for UK, but that is across the course, right? Across the multiple markets, we see this finding the right mix and offering the right mix of the payment options and not overloading the checkout is a key point. And and then we see a big increase and strong preference for digital wallets and contactless payments. That goes without saying that's being on the rise, and it's going to be stronger. And dominance of the card payments, as you can see, is 90% of consumers are using it. But the digital services and the third-party checkout, as you can see, is on the second place, right? Like PayPal and Amazon Pay, and most, they're about 55% of the consumers. So this is also show a shift towards more convenient and trusted digital payment solutions. The key is for understand the customer and their preferences. You've got access to the data for the ones that they have got the access, and understanding the data is going to be key, and understanding the preferences of those customers, right? Understanding the demographic and the age group, adapting it to the preferences of those age groups, and offering the relevant payment methods and on the checkout, and having the customized tailor-made almost and to that preference. And in the age of then AI that we are discussing, those things are just going to be more and more relevant and more streamlined and automated in that. And trust and security are paramount for UK shoppers, right? And making reputable payment gateways essential for the retailers to come, to work with them.
And of course, it's not even just a simple thing of having the options, because the consumer makes a lot of choices. So if you've got, let's say, an individual debit or credit card, that card could be linked to your PayPal account. It could be linked to your Google Wallet. It could be linked to your Apple Pay. It could be stored within the retailer. So even if you're choosing different pathways, it'll often end up with the same card, or you might see one pathway but using different cards. So the consumer is getting quite adept at juggling, where their credit capability is, where they may have a pot of PayPal money they want to spend. So there's a lot going on here in the customer's mind that we need to be measuring just to understand their propensity to spend more, their capacity, their choices around instant credit and pay in 3, that kind of stuff. So there's an awful lot of rich data here to be made available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay. Well, let's carry on then. So the next thing that's emerging in the UK is the subscriptions economy, and this is coming both from new digital subscriptions, but also retailers and brands trying to tie in the consumer to continue buying. So a simple example, if you buy a washing machine these days, it's no longer really a thing. It's like clean clothes as a service with subscriptions to, washing liquids and one thing and another, maintenance contracts. And then, of course, we have the digital services from Netflix, Disney, etc., who started as a subscription service. So big growth in subscription across all types of category. But again, this puts quite a change on the number of transactions with a consumer. So, Cameron, we go from taking £100 transaction, kiss, kiss, goodbye, thank you, see you in a year, to a dozen £8 with lots of customer support. Subscriptions very much change the way we interact.
Absolutely. That goes to your point you made earlier on the purchaser and customer, right? That's a good way of demonstrating it, right? And you're absolutely right. So subscription services are increasingly popular in UK and other markets, with consumers valuing and convenience and ongoing value that they get out of it. So the monthly spending on average for UK households is around 552 on the annual basis on subscription services. It's a wide range, but entertainment and to physical goods are the ones that they're actually driving this, like meal kits and beauty products that people. But also the point around that is that the retention strategy is important to keep that, because the subscriptions are the ones that it's there, but how do you keep them as a subscriber going on? And to your point that you were making, you're making them, recurring customer, and you're getting these purchases over the months to come, right? To capitalize on this trend, businesses, we should focus on flexible subscription models that they can offer, a clear value proposition for their products, and offering easy management and cancellation options also can improve customer retention rates, because that's where you get, you have got this threshold to pass if you don't know how you can actually unsubscribe, right? And then that's the point that you need to be clearly communicating and making it also simple and not making it more difficult, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you're trapped inside.
Exactly. That will help for customers to actually remain a subscription customer. And the user experience is key. And obviously the whole integration, secure and convenient payment option for that is also, crucial, right? For the billing and utilizing popular payment methods to actually directly link it to the direct debits and digital wallets can actually increase the subscription experience.
Good. Well, we've talked earlier about availability, and there's nothing nicer when it comes to availability than being able to turn on every product known to humankind. And so I just want to round off our market catch-up with just a reminder of the growth and importance of marketplace and marketplace technologies in the UK market. So Now, there's been a long history of extended ranges for web only, drop ship, third party suppliers that you don't maybe stock in stores. But the growth of marketplaces and marketplace capability has exploded, is somehow too small a word. So it is worth having a look at the traffic percentages here. So what we're seeing is if we look at the traffic taken across the top 500 sites, then Amazon hoovers up more or less the biggest share of all traffic to the top 500. eBay comes in second, Etsy, a very commendable third, and then we have AliExpress, Steam, ASOS, and other markets then make up 11%. So marketplaces are very important. The thing to remember is, what do marketplaces sell? They generally sell brands and branded products. And so if you're a direct selling brand, then as well as your own channels and your retail wholesale partners, you are also highly in demand on marketplaces. But if you're a retailer and you simply go to a marketplace and resell the products you're already reselling, you don't get necessarily the added advantage. So for you, the advantage is mainly around search, which is being found more quickly. And the bottom pie charts, I think, set out the sort of the imbalance between the number of retailers and the attention the consumer gives. On the left, we can see that around 20% of the top 500 are either pure marketplaces or retailers who operate a marketplace under their own brand. So around 20%. That's quite a big number. But when you look at the share of traffic, those marketplace type retailers are getting a third of the traffic, two-thirds of the traffic, leaving only a third of the traffic for other people. So we have a 3 times over performance in terms of the number of marketplaces, the traffic they get. And that means that in that remaining 35% of customer attention for the 80% of non-marketplaces, they're getting squeezed. So when you look across the top 500 stats, what you'll see is a lot of our top retailers, their traffic is tailing off or slightly diminishing. And they're somewhat compensating this by improved conversion, higher ALV, and working their traffic harder. But the reality is that there are only so many hours a day that a consumer can be shopping. And if they're spending those minutes and seconds on marketplace's site, they're not with you. And so their gain sucks the oxygen out of the room somewhat for the rest, which means there's a bit of an arms race now where everybody is adding in a marketplace left, right, and centre in order to try and get that top of funnel traffic and attention, which they can then convert. So we go into this in great depth in the annual RetailX Marketplaces report. So do grab a copy of that, which gives a full analysis and comparison of the top marketplaces in the UK as well as across Europe. Fascinating reading, but just from this perspective, when you think about the demands of the consumer, when you think about the pressures on the consumer from inflation and real terms wage deflation, plus this increased competition, then it does make it an uncomfortable place to be in the squeezed middle. So I'm sort of saying a good thing and a bad thing at the same time there, Cameron. I'm saying that there's growth, there's innovation, there's a lot more liquidity in the market, but if you're not one of the leaders, there's a bit of a squeeze.
Yes, it does make sense. I think this is interesting stat that you're seeing here, right? And to your point, there is an increasing demand for the marketplaces, and that's where the market is going, and there is this element of, we talked about it earlier, the inflation and the real deflation of the salaries you were discussing, there is a need of compensating this somehow, right? And that's where we can see a effect here. Yeah.
Good. Well, let's finish off with two success stories, because it's always good to celebrate those. The first one is a big favourite of the team at Internet Retailing, which is the ever lovely B&Q, part of Kingfisher Group, and of course one of our other favourite brands is Screwfix, also part of the group, and they have Brico Dépôt and Castorama in France and across Europe. What's interesting here is seeing that their performance in terms of sales has been increasing, but one of the big pushes here has been boosting the number of products. So thanks to adding in a marketplace, we now have 1.2 million products. I'll just let that sink in. And of course, these range from, a pack of 12 screws or, 50 pence worth of roll plugs up to a full, 6 sofa rattan garden suite with gazebo. So the range in terms of price, complexity, size of the products is enormous. But I think what's also interesting is B&Q's own research, which says that up to half the customers who are coming in buying from B&Q for the first time have found them via a marketplace. So I think even though managing 1.2 million SKUs is not for the faint-hearted, then we're seeing very much this the benefit of customer acquisition, bringing new people in. It's a bit like, you're a fisherman and you've doubled the size of your trawler nets. So, as long as you're fishing in the right seas, then, you have a chance to significantly increase your catch. So what's also interesting is this year they're looking to extend the marketplace to include sellers from outside the UK. So again, given the travails post-Brexit of getting things in and out of the UK, it is interesting to see how a group with a very strong European footprint is able to overcome all of the red tape and admin in order to offer those products in the UK again. So well done to B&Q. The case study's up and some interviews as well. So do enjoy them. And also, of course, a big shout out to Marks and Spencer's, which is very much on the up at the moment. One of the few shining stars on the high street, blending, if you like, these sort of the heritage values they've had of good quality, well-priced clothing, but also really storming ahead on the food offering. So they've returned to a serious profit, 41% up year on year, which is phenomenal. And food and clothing grew the most, but home also making a big push. And I think for me, Cameron, I don't know how you see this as a customer or someone who you could look at the M&S in the context of the UK, but one of the things I really like about M&S, and we mustn't forget this, is their importance on the British High Street.
Yeah.
So 600 stores, ranging from, a small format sandwich food, grab and go, right up to out of town enormities. They very much are an anchor in many regional malls and high streets, as well as a couple of flagships in major cities. They really are doing a lot on the physical side as well as the digital. Yeah. So for me, seeing them succeed as a rounded omni-channel player is a fantastic fantastic plus.
Absolutely. It's understanding the data and creating that omni-channel experience is going to be key, because the customers want to have a sort of a experience coming and being recognized and treated with the same kind of a payment experience across, right? And that's something that they are actually working well on that one, and investing in the mobile app customer experience, and they're, they call it move to truly personalized customers experience, as is in the report, right?
I think on that note, just a reminder to myself that we must do a case study on them in terms of their marketing and customer data as well. So that's something for another time, because I'm afraid, Cameron, our time has come to an end. So a big thank you to you, first of all, for your support on the research of the report, and for joining us today to talk through some of the aspects of it. A reminder of what the report looks like. So when you're browsing our site, you can grab it. The URL is there. But as I said, fear not, we will be sending you this link. So that's all there is for today. Do let us know your thoughts and comments. What would you like to see us cover in more depth? Are there areas you think we could have done better, or you'd like us to look at next time? Drop us a note, research@retailx.net. We read them all, and we'll be very happy to hear your thoughts. And in particular, we're starting our work on the next year's one already. So please don't be modest. Do share your success stories, challenges overcome, key considerations with us. You're welcome to that in confidence, but we would love to hear from you. So again, research@retailx.net. But for now, it's a big thank you from the studio from me. Kamran, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And we will leave you for now and follow up with the links. And in the meantime, happy trading to everyone. Thank you.